what state AI is in right now, where is it going, etc. We have a practitioner who is working very closely with developers and programmers quite a lot in Abrami. We have Prasanna here who actually looks in. So definitely for this panel, we will look at how the role of a programmer is changing, has been changing rapidly over the last 1 year, and how it is going to change over the next coming years. And we'll try to paint a picture of how you as developers or aspiring developers or programmers can actually prepare for this world. Right? So just in terms of intro, the word programming itself is an interesting one because probably it came in from a time when people were writing binary or actually punching binary into paper strips and feeding it into machines. And programmer was something which only probably 0.001% of the population could actually do. And starting from there, the word programmer itself gave way to developer, right? Where people could write English. C++ came, C++ came, and then Python came, then a lot of different things came where you could actually write, and that percentage of population who could actually code probably increased from that 0.001 to probably double-digit numbers in percentage. I don't know exact numbers, but and now we are in the middle of another paradigm shift where you can just describe what you want to build, and it is built for you, right? And the word programmer turned developer, and probably it's turning into something different, maybe creator, right? If you have a creative mind about doing something, you can be the creator, right? And that's a change, and that's a huge shift, right? And we are right in the middle of that shift, and that's exactly what we will talk about, right? We'll talk about two things on a very high level and on tactical levels. What has been changing in this world for programmers over the last 1 year, and what is going to change in the future, and as students or as early stage professionals, what can you do to prepare for this change, right? So on that note, let's directly jump in, right? And for the interest of the crowd, the first point that I want to start off with, and I'm assuming that not everyone in this room have actually started using AI in your programming or development work, and let's start from that basic, right? So if you could paint a picture of what has been changing in the world of programming, how AI has been bringing in those changes, starting from Copilot to a lot of different things. If you could paint that picture for our audience, that would be a great start for this conversation. Abrami, I'd love to start from you and then go around.
Thank you. I'm audible, right? That's a very interesting take on how programming has changed over time. I mean, it's not just a change about now that with all these Copilot and Duet AI, Cody, and other models, it's not just that assistants that help you while you code, but you can also write a model and make it suggest code for you, right? But I would say that it has transformed over time several times, right? I remember the time when I started off with Infosys, there was a time when we were not allowed to use anything, any kind of search. We were supposed to know everything and code without having access to internet. You're supposed to code and execute and everything has to compile, and the only time you get to fix things is when you go home and you don't know something. Because the next day you're back, we didn't have laptop, we have to work in the office computer, and there's no internet because of several reasons. And the thing that we were trained on was to code without having to search or copy paste. Nothing was there. So yeah, that is from there. There are several reasons how and several ways that programming has transformed. So right now we don't even have to write anything, right? You just have to say, can you just give me a template framework, a template for Spring Boot framework, or build a template for Django or anything of that sort. And first of all, it transforms from that is where we are right now. That's the current stage. But from the point when I talked about just writing code from your mind and how will that work? You have to be aware of all the business cases. You have to be aware of all the test cases that the snippet has to work accurately for, and then you have to write, compile, and build, and everything has to work fine. So the thing that at that time the CEO was Mr. Narayana Murthy, he used to say that learn how to program without mistakes. Like, okay, we'll do that. From there, we moved to a point where now, in between, it was like we had all these frameworks, and these frameworks were really expediting the way we program, we build applications. You don't have to build everything from the scratch. The frameworks enable those things for you. And then there were accelerator kind of frameworks, like what you do with Gradio and tools like that, which lets you use the anything. You can use Gradio, build your ML models, and just put together a user interface in no time, and then use fast API or deploy it in Cloud Run. Your app is just up and running. As a data scientist, you really get the idea. But the thing is, these things are also taking away from the strong foundation that you need. One has to have from a software engineering perspective. But that aside, that's for another topic. Let's just talk about the happy path, where it has simplified programming, made it easy, and let us focus more on getting your idea rolled out into a product. Ultimately, that's what is important, right? We are not here to, I'm not saying we should not build another Java or another Python. I'm just saying more than that, we are here to enable or create business impact using technology. So definitely, these are accelerators. And now with the advent of generative AI, code gets generated. Programming is so automated. But the fear that would it replace or would we not stand a chance against it is something that I would say it's not something that we have to worry about at this point, because we have stood times, we have stood through tough times, not tough times, evolutions like that. Every single evolution had such a fear. We had such a fear as to what if it takes over us? What if we cannot find any landing over there? What if we don't have an opportunity as programmers? That's not the case, because ultimately, with everything said and done, you need to know what to ask. You need to have the right framework. You need to have the right business reasons for why you're building that. So definitely, the programmers will do much bigger things, just like we have evolved to do what we are doing right now. So sorry for the long answer.
So my experience has been that right now when I hire for somebody, I hire somebody for their ability to think. So I'm no longer hiring someone just for their skill, because that skill keeps evolving. So right now there are two things that we hire for. One is that person's ability to think, and for that person's aptitude, because there are certain things that are very, very critical for any programmer to also have. The ability to collaborate with multiple kinds of people, like domain experts, for instance. You should know how to collaborate with people. You should know how to articulate your point of view and hold a discussion. You should be a team player. So these are all the elements that we take into account when we hire. So the ability to think, the right attitude, and also interestingly, when you talk about creators, right? Into my programming space have come folks with liberal arts backgrounds, simply because they have the ability to ask the right questions. That's a very, very valuable trait in a world where AI provides you with a lot of answers. It's all about asking the right question. So that's another aspect to the evolution. That's
Yeah.
my point.
I think that's an interesting leeway into the future as well, Alpin. So while you answer, I mean, while you talk about the changes which has been happening over the last 10 months or 1 year, it'd be also interesting to get your perspective as an AI researcher. What is going to happen, right? What's going to be the future for a programmer, and what's going to be the future with AI?
Can people hear me at the back? Yeah, so I think somebody said the hardest thing to predict is the future, and that's certainly very true, and especially what's happened of late. I mean, many of us are from the BC era, which is before ChatGPT, and then suddenly we've been faced with the revolution that ChatGPT has spurred, and which is why probably we are having this conversation. So a lot of it, a lot of things that have happened over the last 1 year are around language. And we should be mindful of that the language part of AI has become commoditized to a large extent. Large language models have made a lot of things very easy. The other parts of AI, which include vision, audio, tabular data, and so on. In fact, the largest, the most common type of data in the world is tabular data. The most common type of relevant data in the world is tabular data. Some of these big advancements in AI have not influenced these areas as much, even though these multimodal models and so on have come up. It's really language that's been the game changer. So in the language space, I would certainly say things are getting very commoditized. You can now define your problem in a very overall sense and then have co-pilots write code for you. But there are a few things to watch out for. One is, of course, it's like a self-driving car. The car can do the driving for you, but you're still responsible, right? So you may have AI writing code for you, but the programmer or the developer or maybe the designer from now on, designer or creator, will still be responsible for the code. So, as you mentioned, it's important to make sure that the right tests are written, the right unit tests and so on, and to make sure that it doesn't have bugs. Now, in order to figure out whether it has bugs, you still need to know programming. Right? So it's important that you still have the skills. Now, your skills may not be honed as much because you'll be using tools like large language models. Essentially, LLMs will be tools. And then, as we know in history, what happens when you have tools? You tend to take on more and more complex tasks because now you have tools to do the simple tasks. Right? So the whole enterprise of programming, in my view, is just going to get more and more complex. You're going to be doing very, very, designing very single ICs, designing very complex systems, which they could never have programmed on their own without the use of co-pilots and LLMs and so on. But now that will become more common. So you'll have one-person companies, for example. At least, this is the way I see things are going. You can never replace thinking. So you will still have to understand the fundamentals. You will still have to be humans. You will still have to be empathetic to people. And you'll still have to know whether you're doing the right thing or not. So you'll still need to be qualified. But I'm just seeing a big change in terms of how operationally things will happen. Essentially because of LLMs, you will have companies with fewer people able to do much bigger things, doing more complex things. Larger companies will end up doing much more complex things that probably I can't even imagine today. But it's happening, and it's happening very fast.
All right, Abhirami, if you have views about the future, right? How the programmer's life is going to evolve in the future, we'd love to hear.
The future of programmers right now. I think that's fairly what we touched upon in the previous question as well. I would just say to what he said, the amount of work or the quality of work that developers do will vastly improve. Improve for good. I mean, it's great. We feel like what we're doing is great now, but we will do the unthinkable, I would say, down the line, with things that were once only. I mean, already I'm doing a lot of things which 10 years ago, a decade ago, I thought I didn't even think those things I'd be doing those things someday. So definitely, I owe it all to the way technology has transformed, particularly in the generative AI area. But in the future, like I said, one-person companies, but then that doesn't mean that there will be shortage of work for people. It will just be that we will be doing more complex things, things that add more value, that are more impactful to the society, to even the organization. I wouldn't think that the organizations will shrink. There's always going to be growth in team size, including the team size and everything. I just feel that what we are building as a team would be much different and much bigger. It won't just be anymore like ERP systems or building just systems that they'll all be there already. So that's what I call the progression.
So that's an interesting point, which actually tempts me so much to come to you with a question around entrepreneurship and how it is changing in this world, because so developing software is becoming like 3x faster, or developing a product is becoming much more easier, and a lot of those, with all those changes. But before getting there, let me take a pause and just understanding the group here, right? So how many of you are already like programmers who write code at least like 3 days a week? How many of you? Right? How many of you already use some kind of an AI assistance in your programming life? At least a VS Code extension, right? At least Copilot, right, for that matter, right? Okay, so it's a yeah. And how many of you are entrepreneurs? How many of you build startups? Very few. Yeah. Okay. So now we have like probably 10 people who are entrepreneurs. For them and for the rest of them who are actually builders, in a scenario where product development is becoming way easier or like exponentially easier than how it was before, how do you see the product landscape and the entrepreneurship landscape changing with all these interesting products coming in? And definitely, I'd love to come to you as well, Alpan, after that, from a social aspect as well of that. So, but would start from you, Prasanna. How is entrepreneurship changing?
So you kind of touched upon one point that product development has changed drastically in terms of the speed, right, of development. So there was a point in time when we would take at least about 6 to 12 months, right, to put together a prototype because it was that heavy in terms of thought process and all of the other resource investments that we had to make. But now, when I work with folks, within a period of about a month, we are able to get to some of the critical features, right? So, what I've seen happening is that the design time, earlier we used to take about 20% of the time for design and about 80% of the time for implementation, right? Now the design time is 80% because we think a lot more about why we want to do something, whether there is an ROI and the features that we have, identified. And we play around with building these features very, very quickly and testing the market. So from a programming point of view, what I've seen is teams that I work with, the way they think about product that has changed. It's become way more agile than it used to be in the past. That is one element. The second element that I've seen is there is no distinction. Earlier, the way we used to work is our programmers, we would only interact with them when we want to talk about the code that they have to do. We never spoke to them about the business need. But now we are joined at the hip, more so than in the last 4 to 5 years. Now the programmers sit through all the client conversations because they really need to understand the need for what they're building. So that's another huge shift that I have seen. So when I interact with entrepreneurs who come from a programming background, that is an area that we have conversations on, that you're no longer just a programmer looking at building a business. You're a business person who also happens to be a programmer. So you have to learn the nuances of business. You have to make sure that whatever you're looking at building is solving a problem and it's also going to make money at the end of the day. So that's a shift that I'm seeing more so now than in the past.
I think there's an interesting merge story there where Alpan spoke about one-person companies evolving and Prasanna talking about that one person understanding in-depth the market and the business, which means every single hand that went up when I asked if you are a developer could be a company, right? Which is an amazing future, right? So you could build products, get it out there, get it out to people who need it, right? And which is amazing, right? So the whole thought that this room could produce like 100 companies is amazing, right? And that's the future in which we are actually getting into. But I'd really love to double down on that need piece, right? Because I'm pretty sure you will have a deeper definition of need when it comes to a society in your line of work when you build software or build AI for good. So I'd love to hear from you that social aspect of building products as well.
So there's this whole area of AI called AI for social good, which in Western countries is often meant sort of discovering biases within AI, trying to figure out where AI models, what are the failure modes? Are they more biased towards men than women? Are they more biased towards, against marginalized communities and so on? And that's a very important enterprise, and I think it will become even more important with these large language models because the level of control we have over these models is reducing. Right? We don't know what they're learning from data. I mean, we know what in terms of the math. We know, we know the operations that are going on, but we don't know exactly what they're learning. And because of that, this has always been a problem with AI, the tendency to amplify biases. This tendency to amplify biases is only going to get worse, and so then you have all these techniques like RAG and sort of guardrails and so on to try and mitigate that. But this problem is only going to get worse and worse. What I want to talk about, though, this is more of a digression. What I want to talk more about, though, is the positive use of AI for social impact. And those of you who will attend my talk, I think right after this, will see a few examples of it. But what I want to tell you guys is that it's not just important to think of yourselves going forward out in the world and creating value for sort of the urban elite within India or or Western countries and so on. When 90% of this population in our country is suffering, they don't know anything about the digital space. They don't even know how to use digital tools. And then the question is, can you use AI to help them? And the answer is yes. And in fact, with LLMs, there's lots of opportunities that open up to put information in the hands of the people who need it the most and who don't have the literacy levels or the knowledge to be able to access that information, right? So, for example, earlier, even if you had to do a Google search, you had to be savvy to some extent to be able to know what you're searching for. With LLMs, that barrier goes down a bit. It doesn't go away completely, but the barrier goes down a bit. And then with language translation technologies, you can do this in local languages, you can do this in local dialects, give people information about programs, government programs that may benefit them that they don't know anything about because the language is so arcane, they can't even figure out the legalese, right? So things like that. There are many other cases where AI can help underserved communities in India, in Africa, in other parts of Asia and so on. And I think it's important to keep that in mind that, as developers, as AI developers, as you code up AI models, there are applications that can actually help you give back to the communities that you came from. We are one institute that's working in some of these areas, and slowly there's a number of institutes and companies that are doing things like this. And I hope some of you will become, in the future, entrepreneurs who think about social good and social impact rather than just maximizing financial value.
Before we move on, is there a reason this fan is not on? Can I turn it on?
That is already, I was looking at it. That's on. It doesn't reach here.
I just had a point of view to add to what he's saying, and that is about, that goes back to what you were talking about in terms of what do you look for in a programmer, who is a programmer. So one element of choice, with people who come to us with a portfolio, is the work that they have done with their communities, because that's a great practice ground. So I remember folks coming to us with, work that they have done in multiple communities, the kind of work that they have done, and they've used that work as a part of their portfolio. So that's also something that I totally resonate with Alpin on.
I'd love to pick your thoughts on that as well, Ravi, the business models that are evolving in AI. Obviously, you work with a lot of developers, you've done boot camps, coding classes and everything. So in your line of work, I mean, generally, what's your thought around business models evolving of new products which are now possible with AI? Generally, business models evolving.
Sure. I was pleasantly surprised when I initially started getting closer to communities. I mean, of course, I was in the software engineering track for the first, I would say, 14, 15 years of my career. Like, I was a principal software engineer, and then when I took up this role, which needed that kind of an experience, and then also work closely with developers. I was pleasantly surprised to see so many, in India particularly, so many developers who are aspiring entrepreneurs, but they had a social cause in mind. I would try so hard to understand where's the economic impact. Like, how are they going to make money? Or I wouldn't ask. I would think, how would you make money? I mean, that's how much social impact is in it, is part of it. So I was really surprised. There's nothing. I think there is, at least from this upcoming generation of entrepreneurs, I think that is already sorted. We are in a much better place because the way ideas are coming, they are thinking about go green. They're thinking about brown living, green living. There's like every color out there, and everything is creating an impact to the society, which I was surprised initially. One thing I would say is that, and also I have seen some startups. I also mentor startups as part of as an additional interest of mine at work. From a technology perspective, of course, I'm not a startup owner myself, but then there, what I've seen is startups actually also have a parallel social impact or social cost related team that works exclusively on how to take it to the communities, how to make this product or how to make this business of value to societies. In addition to the actual product, that the money-making product that they are building. So I think it's already there. We have to continue to double down on seeing how to not just make it a social cause, also improve the economy of the society and also for themselves. I think we are the future is right that way. I'm very confident.
Right. On that note, again, yeah.
There's just one more point I wanted to add, and that of responsible programming. Because more often than not, I've heard people from the government and from other places, when I talk to them, they say, well, we're in the beginning. Why are we talking about responsibility and guardrails? And it's not really a person's job. But, just adding to what you were saying and what Alpin was saying, every programmer also has to think about the consequence of what he or she is doing. And that is actually a part of social good in my view.
Great. So that's definitely one important point. And I think a big takeaway from that whole discussion around business models is also that you have a real opportunity to actually build things to solve problems that you see around, right? And that can be any problem. So for a good number of you, that could be a social problem that you see. For a good number of you, it might be a programming challenge that you see, right? A problem that you encounter while actually doing coding, right? So interestingly, even in that space, building for programmers space is probably one of the areas where, since 90% of this group are actually programmers or developers, you might actually find problems that connect with you, right? In my line of work, just in the last 2 weeks, I spoke to startups who are actually building for every single phase of programming, starting from architecting and designing to actually writing the code, testing the code, completely automating the code, and deploying, right? So all different angles of it, aspects of it, right? So there are products being built, there are still products that could be built as long as you see problems out there, be it in the society or be it in your own life, right? In your own line of work, you have an opportunity to actually build, right? So we are almost getting there into the 45 minutes of our time. I'd love to just do a fun rapid fire, maybe. Yeah. So we don't have to answer, but maybe quick show of hands, yes or no, right? I'll just give statements, and if you think that statement is true, just raise your hands, right? So just a few things, right? One, programming jobs are going to decline in numbers. Okay, so one person thinks so. Services industry, the software services industry is going to struggle big time in the next 5 years. Okay, all right. So we have the majority who doesn't believe so. Trivial software services are going to die. The trivial, simple software services and maybe KPOs are going to die. Okay, so that's a majority, right? Now AGI is going to end the world. AGI is going to end the world. Okay, so OpenAI has achieved AGI. No? Okay. Okay, the most important question. I wish I was 18 or 20 years old when this whole AI revolution is happening.
I don't want to be 18 ever again.
Okay, so I think that was just for the fun part of it. But again, I mean, by the way, my answer to the last question was a big yes. Okay, the reason being there are a whole bunch of opportunities opening up in front of you, you who are like 18, 20, 25 years old, right? And being in this foundational transformation that we are actually going through is an interesting phase to be in, right? Where you can go in, double down, build stuff, build a lot of things, right? Build a lot of things, fail in a lot of things, and actually try out, right?
Can I contradict that?
Okay, please, yeah.
Do you want to go first?
The thing is, you feeling that way right now because you're comfortable. Ask an 18-year-old if they want to just try and fail. How many 18-year-olds want to try and fail? Everyone's scrambling. But I'd say it's a fine balance. But opportunity is equal. If you're 20, you're in the mid 20s, you're in the mid 30s, mid 40s, mid 60s, whatever it is, AI has opportunity for any age group. So I don't think that you're there just because you're 18. You're not. Only if your attention is focused on that, then yes. At any point in time, you have to be willing to take risks to enjoy the benefits of it.
Agree or disagree? The truth remains that there's please.
I just have one thing to add. So I think opportunity is in the eye of the beholder. There's always been opportunity. When I was in that age group, the internet was just coming up. So I remember life before the internet, which none of you know. And similarly, you'll remember the BC age, the before ChatGPT age, which your children are not going to know about, right? And they'll have different kinds of opportunities. So, at that time, the internet was the huge opportunity, and there were .coms and all of that. And many of them failed, many of them succeeded. So I think it's always there, the opportunities.
Absolutely. So the bottom line and the most important part is the opportunity is here, and it will be here for you to actually grab. And obviously, not everyone in this world will grab those opportunities. It is only going to be a minority, and I hope that minority, the whole of that minority, probably from Kochi, is here. And it's a great time to be actually building.
But
So.
just one quick point.
If you look at the World Economic Forum statistics, what they say is by 2030, 50% of the young people will have to be entrepreneurs, because jobs as we know it and organizations as we know it are no longer going to exist. So that's a possibility.
Absolutely. So that would make it not an option, but a necessity to be actually innovating and building and creating stuff, right? And again, all of these things point to one place, which is you are at the right place, right? And you are at the right mindset. The reason why on a Saturday you decided to come here itself is testament to that. So kudos to all of you. Thank you, all the panelists. All the panelists will be here. Feel free to just barge in, grab them, gain all the knowledge. Use this opportunity to the complete in the complete sense. So wish you all the best, and once again, big thanks to the panelists, and thanks so much for listening. Thank you.
I have one request. The space is so good. This TinkerSpace. Someone just port this to Bangalore, create one over there, because it's too hot to be coming here every week. I want to be running at least one session every week in a place like this. So you can actually think about the founders can actually plan to expand this to Bangalore and other cities of the I think it'll have a good because what you're doing is amazing. I can see every day 100 entrepreneurs are getting developed. This is inspiring.
It's wonderful. That's one big kudos to Meher and his team as well, right? So let's give it up once, right? So for doing an amazing job.